Of the Lord. So today we have the Sermon on the Plain, another version of the Beatitudes, unlike the one in Matthew's Gospel where it's all about blessings. This one has whoa, 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 whoa. And it's really a question about reality. The reality is that the poor are with us, and more importantly, it's not an option that we give them preferential treatment. It is a mandate from our Lord Jesus. Take a look at Matthew's Gospel when Jesus comes to separate the sheep and the goats, right? What you did to the least, you did to me. So I want to talk about what's some of my own experiences of real and unreal. The Beatitudes are real, but here's something that was a little unreal for me. As we watched the snowstorm coming today, I was thinking back. Last month, my wife and I, Paul and I, had the wonderful opportunity to go to Naples, Florida for 3 weeks. It was wonderful, but in some ways, it was unreal. Because I couldn't afford anything. I couldn't afford golf. I couldn't afford to go out to eat. It was just a different world to us. We were kind of like out of our element, you know. And I got to go golfing. I was invited by a very wealthy man, a friend of mine who has a home there and a home here. And he takes me out on his golf course. And it is just like plush, right? And I'm looking down at myself to make sure I'm dressed right. And I'm stunned in the parking lot by the cars. Bentley, Jaguar, you know, all Mercedes, all the top line cars. And as we're out on the golf course, you know, I'm trying to think, he says to me, "Deacon, you know, I'm a rich guy and I don't do enough. All I do is play tennis and golf. That's all I do." I said, "Well, you go to church, don't you?" He goes, "Yeah, I go to church. We go to church on the beach. What can I do?" And I said, "It's not for me to judge. Read the gospel. What does Jesus say? Yeah, it's hard for a rich man to enter heaven, but it's not impossible. Certainly there are many things you can do, good things you can do with your money. So there's nothing wrong or evil about being wealthy. It's what you do with it, right?" But that world down there was a little unreal for us. I sometimes think getting real is just enjoying the little things in life, the worthwhile things. So I'll give you, here's some reality. Last week I took my granddaughter to school. I take a couple turns during the week, and I take her to school. And when we go to school, we wait in line for them to get out of their cars, and she has to be the first in line. It's the way she's wired. I got to go 20 minutes early. She's got to be first, and she wants to sit there, and she wants to listen to Taylor Swift videos. All right. So she says to me, "Grandpa, did you watch the Grammys?" I said, "No." "Did you?" I'm thinking to myself, "Really? You're in 3rd grade?" "Oh, yeah, Grandpa, I watched the Grammys. It was awesome. Especially Sabrina Carpenter." And I said, "Who's Sabrina Carpenter?" And guess what I got? "Really, Grandpa?" She rolled her eyes. A 3rd grade, rolling her eyes at me. And she says, "Papa, you're just not in touch." So as we're listening to Sabrina Carpenter and Taylor Swift for 20 minutes, it's time to get out of the car. And she says, "You know, Grandpa, what the perfect girl would be?" And I said, "You're the perfect girl, Rita." No, the perfect girl's name would be Sabrina Carpenter. She'd be half Sabrina and half Taylor Swift. And as she was getting out, I immediately went into a novena for her. But that's the real stuff, isn't it? Those precious kind of moments you have with your kids, grandkids, that's the good stuff. The little interactions, that's what it means to be real. To be real. And we live in a culture now That's losing that mystery of personal encounter. Simple things like a gesture, a smile, a hug, a nod, a tear, a pat on the back, or a little kid rolling their eyes at you. Those wow moments, that's the real stuff. And now for the unreal and the real, and that is this business of the Beatitudes. What is that all about? You know, blessed are you when you can't make ends meet. Blessed are you when the biopsy comes in positive for cancer. Blessed are you when you're at wit's end, taking care of your Alzheimer parent. Blessed are you when your kids are in trouble. Blessed are you when a loved one dies. Blessed are you when your granddaughter's a Swiftie. And blessed are the poor and the hungry and the imprisoned. That's real. You know, in the time of Jesus, the poor, in some ways, were very different than our poor today. In the time of Jesus, they didn't have anything. They didn't have counseling. They didn't have soup kitchens. They didn't have shelters from the cold. They didn't have hospitals. There was no medical insurance. There weren't doctors. There weren't even nursing homes. People were poor, and there were a lot of them. And certainly there was the upper class, usually, you know, the leaders of the synagogue, those kind of people. There were landowners. There were tax collectors. And Jesus, you could argue, was middle class because he was a carpenter. But the poor were everywhere. And Jesus sees the poor, and he proclaims and mandates that we do something about it, right? Whatever you see in the least, you see in me. And I'm thinking about the poor today. Here's another reality check. The last time it was warm out, I'm on my bicycle. I love to ride up and down the towpath that goes through Barberton. There's the canal towpath. It goes through the whole city down into Clinton and Canal Fulton. And as I'm riding along, right there under the bridge in downtown Barberton that connects the east side with downtown, the big viaduct, I'm riding, I stop, and there's 6-8 people under the bridge with their tents set up and their sleeping bags and a little fire going. And I say to myself, I should stop and talk to them. But I didn't, because I made an excuse. I got to get home. I got to go. Maybe next time. And the more I think about it, the next time I will. But I think to myself, what happened to them? How different are they than the poor of Jesus' time? Because poverty in America is an enigma to me. There are people who've fallen off the edge. There are people who used to have it all. There's people who are CEOs and finance people, all kinds of people who become homeless. And I'm not judging, but you know that there's something amiss. Something's not right. What happened, you know? And maybe that's what the Lord's asking us to think about. You know, it's easy to dismiss people. It's easy to dismiss the guy who's standing at the bottom of the exit when you pull off the highway. You know, I'm going to close with this because I want to lead into Catholic Charities. A friend of mine who's a minister spent an entire day just to see what it was like. He dressed up like a homeless person. He got one of the signs, and he stood down at the bottom of the exit there off of Manchester Road, off the highway. And he said, you know what, Robin? Of people for the poor is such a mixed bag. I got $20 bills, I got coffee, I got McDonald's, I got wonderful things. But at the same time, I got spit on, I got cussed at, I got yelled at, I got things thrown at me. I was told, go get a job, everything you can imagine. Everything you can imagine. As church, we have to remind ourselves that the poor are among us, and it's a mandate. That's what the Beatitudes is all about. That's what it means to get real. And maybe, we all are called to different ways to serve the poor and the homeless and all those people out there on the margins. All of us are called to different ways. Our deacon, he's a counselor. He helps these people through counseling. We have soup kitchens. We have all these things, but not everybody can do that. And Catholic Charities is one way we can do it, because Catholic Charities takes care of a lot of people on the margins, pregnancy centers, and homeless, and drug addiction, and all that stuff out there where people have fallen off the edge. So in a moment now, we're going to hear just a 3-minute talk from Bishop Malesic. Father's going to lead you through the Charities Appeal. But it is one way. If you can't do any of those things, consider at least doing that. Because there's a danger right now that Catholic Charities could take a big hit. It could. I think you know what's going on. And it's going to be up to us, the people in the pews and the parishes, to fill that gap. So I just ask you to consider that, and consider the reality that we are called, like our Lord Jesus Christ, to do the corporal works of mercy and to see Jesus in the most marginalized of our society. So at this time, we will hear from our bishop.
Hello, this is Bishop Ed Malesic. I'd love to be at your parish in person today, but please take a listen as I introduce you to the 2025 Catholic Charities Appeal. Our theme is Make Me a Channel of Your Peace. You'll recognize that line from the famous prayer attributed to St. Francis. It speaks to all of us. Lord, make me a channel of your peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. That well-known prayer begins with a desire to share the peace of God with others. Through Catholic Charities, we can all be a channel of God's peace. We can all contribute something that will help bring peace to a troubled heart or a troubled mind. During this appeal, you will hear stories of people facing situations where peace is disrupted. For Beth and Joe, it began when their 6-year-old son, Peter, started losing his eyesight and was diagnosed with a degenerative disease. They're grateful that Catholic Charities provided peace in a time of stress, with weekly respite care visits offered to families facing a disability. You'll hear the stories of 2 women in sudden financial crisis, one facing overdue bills while caring for a son with autism, the other coping with a cut in income while trying to pay for her rent and medications. Emergency financial assistance from Catholic Charities brought them much-needed relief and a sense of peace. And you'll meet 99-year-old Virginia, who was blessed with a community of friends and activities in her Huff neighborhood at the Fatima Family Center, where seniors find peace and joy in a time of life that often brings social isolation. These are just some of the ways Catholic Charities becomes a channel of God's peace, all because of your commitment to give generously. Everywhere in Northeast Ohio, there are people in distress. Help us become a channel of peace for them by supporting the many services provided by Catholic Charities. Your pastor will explain the process and lead you in making your pledge. Thank you, and may God bless you and those you love.